Shalom everyone, welcome back to my porch. I'm Sarah. Listen. We've been doing this series on signs and symbols and ancient sacrifices, just in the spirit of Abraham Avinu, that we can cast off these symbols and keep them out of our homes, okay, with proper investigation, just to know, are triangle shapes harmless? Are they not harmless? Things like this. And I have always heard a story about an Easter egg, the Easter egg, that sounded very true, okay? It sounded very true. And it could be true, but turns out that there's no evidence for it. And we're going to talk about it, okay? We're going to talk about the Easter egg. So first and foremost, where all have eggs, not Easter eggs, but just the egg, okay? Been seen throughout history. And what were they used for, right? What's the deal with the egg? In ancient Mesopotamia, eggs were associated with the goddess Ishtar, or Diana, a deity of fertility, love, and war. Archaeological evidence suggests that eggs, often dyed to symbolize blood and life, were used in springtime rituals to honor her, coinciding with the season of renewal. These rites celebrated the return of life after winter, and eggs as a source of new life were natural symbols. Some scholars speculate that offerings of eggs were placed at the altars and buried as gifts to ensure fertility for crops, livestock, and families. So the goddess in which Easter is named after has a very similar story of this, and we're going to see it again. But first, let's take a look at ancient Egypt and their use of the egg, because we are headed towards Passover. We left Egypt, so what exactly did we leave behind? Similarly, in ancient Egypt, eggs appear in mythology tied to creation. The cosmic egg motif, where the world or a deity hatches from an egg, shows up in texts like coffin texts. While not explicitly sacrificial, eggs were revered as vessels of potential and sometimes included in tomb offerings to sustain the deceased in the afterlife, reflecting their life-giving power. And the cosmic egg motif is just very simple, that the whole universe hatched from an egg. There's nothing more to it than that. So let's look at, medieval European uses of the egg. Across Europe, pre-Christian pagan traditions also embrace eggs. In Germanic and Slavic cultures, eggs were linked to spring festivals honoring deities like Eostre. Eggs were decorated, offered to the earth, or used in rituals to invoke prosperity. For example, in some Slavic practices, eggs were buried in fields or cracked over sacred stones to quote-unquote feed the lamb, a form of synthetic magic to ensure growth. The sacrificial angle is less direct, but can be inferred in many ancient societies. Giving up something valuable like an egg, a key food source, was practical offering to gods or spirits. The act of breaking or burying eggs could symbolize releasing their life force as a gift. In Zoroastrianism, during the Persian New Year, which aligns with the spring equinox, eggs were painted and placed on altars, not sacrifices per se, but as tokens of renewal, hinting at a broader egg-centric tradition across the ancient world. So when Rome was spreading Christianity throughout the Middle East and into Europe and all the other places that they spread, they could not get the people in these areas to give up their traditions, their holidays, and things like this. Saturnalia became Christmas, some pagan holidays became Valentine's Day, and Easter was no exception to this. I was always told the story, and there's sources to back it up, but Grok seems to feel like there's not enough proof to put a definite on it. But the story of Eostre comes from this Eostre goddess that we see in this Slavic and Germanic group. She was the goddess of fertility, and she would leave a golden egg for somebody to find, and the person who found the golden egg had the promise of fertility. And as you see from what proof we do have, is that people were burying eggs for her. Okay? So maybe the story of the golden egg is a stretch, but there was a practice of leaving eggs for her. This tradition got changed. The reason people do Easter egg hunts is they made it about the Trinity, the yolk, the whites, and the shell, 3 in 1. Okay, 3 things, 1 egg. And they changed it into this, and this is why eggs were incorporated into Easter. And this was the story that I've been told for a long time about this, because the Easter egg was always a weird thing, right? It's weird. Christmas has Santa Claus. Okay, some guy who feels sorry for orphan kids left gifts. Okay, fine. Like, fine. But the egg thing is weird, right? It's just weird. Like, everybody can kind of see it as something being weird, and it does have deeply pagan roots. And the story, while there isn't tons of evidence for it, this is because they lacked writing skills. They weren't documenting things in caves and books. So it's just stories that have been passed down, which is why they're saying that it's not evidence that this actually took place. Eostre is a whisper from Beded, 725 CE, an Anglo-Saxon goddess with a spring month, Estrmontes. No eggs, no hairs, just a name. Later, folks like Jacob Grimm's guessed she's a dawn or fertility figure. The golden egg or egg-laying hare tales. Modern spin, 17th century German folklore has hares dropping eggs for kids, but Estre's not in the script. Okay, and I just want to point out that Christianity was already spreading, so they were already trying to replace some of these holidays with Christian ones. So this was already going on. So to drop her name from it kind of makes sense, right? Like they did the same thing with other holidays. They were allowing them to keep the customs. They just changed the names and the meanings so that they would be doing it, not for pagan reasons. No proof. Here's the kicker. No carvings, no sagas, no Roman records. Dramatic tribes didn't write much pre-Christianity, and Beded's the lone voice. She could have been real, her feast eggs heavy, but it's a maybe, lost to time, puffed up by romantics. If Eostre existed, Rome might have folded her into Easter like they did Saturnalia into Christmas. A fertility goddess with eggs fits the pattern. Pagan joy rebranded for the cross. Look, in my opinion, this just fits the bill. Okay, it just fits the bill. When we look at what happened in Valentine's Day, the origins of Valentine's Day, where they were being matched up and girls were getting hit with goat's hides to make them more fertile, all of these crazy things, it just fits the bill. Okay, the egg is less weird than that, but it's still fitting the bill, especially when you have ancient cultures doing very similar things with eggs. And so I would say it's very pagan, that most likely Rome just simply changed the story around because they couldn't get people to give up this holiday like the others. And the thing is, like, the whole point of this is just to educate yourself, to know where the roots of things are, and you can make the decision for yourself whether it's not something that you want to incorporate in your house. And I'll give you an example of something that happened to me specifically with the egg. A couple years ago, I was working in a school. It was a Jewish religious school with girls, and the teachers gave out these gifts, and I got this gift from a Haredi teacher. And if you don't know what Haredi is, it's one of the more religious, more stern sects in Judaism. Gave me this egg, and inside the egg it had dirt and some seeds, and you were supposed to either plant it or water it, and it was supposed to eventually grow into a plant, which fits the bill of this background, right? What we just talked about, it fits this. And one of the kids handed it to me and said it came from such and such teacher, and I said, wow, this is deeply pagan. And they looked at me and they said, what are you talking about? And I said, it's deeply pagan. This is very, very pagan. And I explained to them why it was pagan and that it had to be destroyed. I explained that it was deeply pagan and it had to be destroyed. And they were kind of just staring at me. And I said, but it came from this teacher. And I said, look, she did it very naively. We don't know the backgrounds to things anymore. These stories have been lost. These traditions have been lost. They've been rewritten. But that's the whole point of the series, right? That when you have these instances, that you can have the education and the background to say, no, this is something foreign to us. It's foreign to what what God says is acceptable. And it says very clear in the Bible that we are not to take on the foreign practices of others and incorporate it into our religion. It's very, very deeply forbidden. We saw in the Canaanites, some of their traditions, the dipping the goat in the milk, whatever this was, it was so serious it caused a whole civilization of people to be wiped out. So we want to be diligent with this. We don't want to take on any particularly problematic things, and so it's up to you. Do your research, think about it. If you think it's just some sort of silly folklore that was passed down to tell stories, or if you think it's something very deeply pagan and sacrificial. For me, the Easter egg is something that's very deeply pagan. To keep it far away from me. It's not cute, nothing like that. So again, the whole point is to educate yourself, to know the signs and symbols of the world around you and how to incorporate them when you have the control.